Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Somerset House. My name is Scott. I'm the creative producer leading on the Creative Careers programme here at Somerset House, obviously from my kitchen, for time being. Today's event is being streamed live on various channels: Somerset House main website, YouTube Live, Facebook Live, Somerset House Twitter, retweeted by Fashion Revolution, and of course, fashionopenstudio.com. Huge thank you to you all for joining us wherever you are in the world. A bit jittery because it's my first time on broadcast. The reason for delivering our event today alongside Fashion Open Studio and during Fashion Revolution Week is to mark both the 50th anniversary of Earth Day, exploring how art and culture can inspire positive action in relation to the current ecological crisis, as well as combine our Creative Careers programme, which supports emerging talent and offers access routes into the creative industries. Our innovative Creative Careers programme at Somerset House is delivered in three threads, fashion threads. Number one is the Creative Careers Academy, which offers full-time work placements, fairly paid at London living wage within the creative sector. Number two is the Creative Job Studio, mentoring and networking events in partnership with grassroots charity, Creative Society. And number three, upgrade yourself, skills enhancing workshops and talks, both digitally and IRL in real life. By collaborating with Fashion Open Studio and Fashion Revolution today, we will bring you conversations and discourse, workshops, film clips, some fun and games, information, inspiration and innovation from four very creative designers who are all interested and engaged in various areas of the fashion and textiles landscape, and who champion new models of making and creating, new models of production, new models of communication, and new models of collaboration. If you'd like to ask us direct questions and for a chance to get these read out live, please comment on a platform using one of the hashtags, hashtag Fashion Open Studio, hashtag Somerset House, and hashtag Earth Day. So for now, please sit back and get comfortable and immerse yourself, as I'm now delighted to hand you over to the most brilliant Orsola de Castro, founder of Fashion Revolution, who will tell you a little bit more and then we'll introduce our programme of talent today. So take it away, Orsola, and have a great.
Thank you so much, Scott. I really would love to thank you, Karishma and Eleanor, for all of your work and for this amazing partnership with Creative Careers at Somerset House. It means so much to us. It really is something that has made us, happy and so delighted to share this experience with you. As you said, here we are at Somerset House, which today is in everybody else's house as well, which is quite unique. And we are introducing some talents that I love and know, and young designers that I have a huge passion for on a personal as well as professional level. Katie Jones, Paolo Carzana, Congregation Design, and Bethany Williams. Each and every one of them, I swear, are innovating, and just very exciting. Katie will start the day leading with her macrame tutorial. Katie and I go back a really long way. We met at Aesthetica at London Fashion Week quite a few years ago, and I'm a huge admirer of her world and her creativity and also her dexterity, not just manual, but the way that she has created a very different business model, very unique to her. Paolo, we met at Central St. Martin's, and he's super young, and he will be showing us his MA graduate collection from the Central St. Martin's MA, which again really celebrates the beauty of what is left unwanted and found. Congregation Design, I am so looking forward to this session. It's going to be riotous. It's all about playing with our clothes, irreverently, funnily, and uniquely. And I'm here as we speak. I am actually in my closet, so I really can't wait to play this game. And last but definitely not least is Bethany Williams, who will be sharing with us in a Q&A with Tamsin Blanchard, not just some of her amazing techniques, but her business models as well. Bethany is one of the most creative designers, both in the way that she designs and in the way that she chooses to operate her business. This is extremely important at this point in time, that we design amazing collections and we invent just as interesting and meaningful businesses to go with them. So before COVID, we were all aware of another crisis unfolding, and this is the climate breakdown that we are all facing unless we just get going with saving this planet. And in many ways, we were all looking for solutions, and then COVID-19 happened, and everything seems to have speeded up. I'm very proud that Fashion Open Studio was one of the first initiatives to pivot online completely. Actually, Fashion Open Studio generally is about its opposite. It's really about visiting the designer studio, intimate setting, to meet the people and see the processes behind these collections, the inspiration, often even the mistakes that accompany this journey of being a designer, a maker, and in your studio, in your own intimacy. And the idea that we've been able to just hop online and connect with some of the most amazing designers all over the world, I have to say has been illuminating and incredibly humbling for us all, for the whole of the Fashion Revolution team to witness. We've seen 49 designers in 14 countries. Literally, I have been transported to the home of an artisan for Kasha's label in India. I have been hopping on YouTube where we were banned, which I took as a great compliment, even if it was a little bit annoying, for the brilliant Superarchive session. We've been to Zimbabwe, we've been on Instagram lives all over the place. And this is powerful. This is really an incredible way to connect, which involves no flying, and involves really zooming in onto other people's lives, daily lives, and everyday lives, which is, it's been really, as I said, humbling and incredibly empowering. I hope that we will continue to meet like this, and of course I also hope that we will go back to some kind of a normality, but we are here to celebrate Earth Day. And of course, COVID has shown us some really horrendous things about humanity, and some of the worst in us has been visible, particularly in the fashion industry from a social point of view. Orders being cancelled and huge disregard for human suffering and human safety. But we have also seen the rapidity with which the earth responds when we don't attack it with our pollution and with our somehow invasion. And we are seeing quick recoveries, even in London. You know, the stars at night, the skies are clear, we don't see aeroplanes or hear cars. This should be an indicator that if there is an emergency and we act together, we can make profound changes happen. And we can react abruptly when things need to be. And we can show empathy for each other. And grow together even in difficult situations. So I hope that once we leave this difficult moment, balance will be what we will find all together, and diversity. And by diversity, I mean inclusion of some of these incredible designers, such as the ones that we will see today, and the ones that we've seen in Fashion Open Studio. Much more visible, they will need our support, but also they deserve to be seen by a much wider audience for the brilliant innovation that they are really giving us and exposing us to. Thank you again, Somerset House, and all of you for taking part. And I will pass over to Katie, and I will see you later at the end of this amazing session that I'm really looking forward to. Over to you, Katie.
Thank you. Hi, guys. I'm Katie Jones, and I'm going to be leading a tutorial today where we're going to be making our very own, let me find it, market bag with no sew, using an old t-shirt and a really simple macrame knot. But first I'm just going to sort of introduce you a little bit to me and my work and sort of my journey into sustainability. So I am primarily a crochet designer, knitwear designer. I studied at Central St Martin's for, I think, nearly a total of 7 years, because I did my BA and my MA and a foundation all in one chunk. And I've always been really drawn to making and crafty and really hands-on. But my journey with the kind of sustainability didn't really start until I left university, because I was always quite thrifty. And I think when you're a student, sometimes that's quite inherent because you're just using up what you can get. But I think in that sort of 6-7 years of study, sustainability at the time wasn't really a thing. We never sort of learned anything about it. And I think it's really, I mean, it's amazing that it sort of flew overhead. So I left and I wanted to make a knitwear primarily. It's just really long, you know, anything made by hand takes a really long time, which means if you're making it in, you know, a safe environment, and especially if you're making it in the UK, its cost is really mainly how long it takes. But the pure cost of wool and material is also quite expensive. So I sort of fell into sustainability and I met Orsola, which sort of really radically changed my outlook. And it was one of those things where the more I learned from her, the more I can unknow. And the more I got sort of more passionate about just all the sort of aspects of the supply chain and making. And for me, especially as a crocheter or like doing handwork, a lot of those things can't be industrialized. So there's not a machine to do it. So when you sort of realize that making something takes 30, 40 hours, how does that become sort of cheaper in the kind of scale of things? So where I really started was I was trying to produce garments, and I couldn't tally up the hours. And I started then my sort of upcycling journey. So you can see I started basically kind of jazzy darning, working into secondhand pieces that I could get my hands on to give the base, so I would be able to add all that elaborate decoration. And I operated as a sort of ready to wear brand, and I did 6 seasons, and I worked mainly with knit pieces or quite a bit of leather work, working into denim, and everything was made in my London-based studio. Everything was sort of hand produced, and I loved the fact that I was completely in control of the supply chain, and we could monitor everything, and that it was sort of as sustainable and as ethical as I could make it, because I basically controlled my whole environment with it. But what I found was, for me, because I was making everything by hand and these were taking, you know, we'd managed to rapidly reduce the hours into the pieces by working with upcycling, but they still, like a jumper like this would still take about 25-30 hours to work into, which then this goes in to, if you're working in a wholesale method, this is basically, you know, that's your cost, you times it, supposedly you're supposed to also times it by 2 and then by 3. And it just would make the pieces so uninclusive, because the price point became so elevated. And that's really, for me as a maker as well, I love making. And I just really hated that my products that I were producing, that I wanted to be as sustainable as possible, were becoming really just overpriced to most people. And I wanted to work in a way where I could increase people thinking about those sort of hours into it. And so I produced 6 collections as a ready-to-wear brand. And then I took a season out and had a sort of rethink. And I kind of was thinking about, what do I love? How can I do that with others? And how can I make it really just open for everyone? Because I think that's a big thing as well, in like inclusivity for all. So I kind of changed my whole brand to make it yourself. So I design collections, but I host workshops, and I run live events and make patterns, which you can download and then follow along. And then for me, I loved the community, and it really hit loads of sort of nails on the head for me, because I was making my pieces as sustainable as possible, but the real kind of problem is this kind of mass consumption. But if you engage with people and you're making your own clothes and you're upcycling things and you know the true worth, I think it's quite a lot of the time, you know, when you start gardening and you grow vegetables and you realize the worth of it. And I think crafting is really like another aspect of that. It, like, you know how many hours go into it, you know where you get your materials, you know how to fix it. And also kind of, if someone's made something for you or you make it for yourself, the amount that you sort of hold on to it and really look after it really increases the length of time that you keep that piece. If not just for you, but then you pass it on. And I had loads of pieces from my grand's that she made probably like nearly 50 years ago. And they're in my closet and I wear them, and I just wanted to embrace that. And so today I'm going to be talking you through a really like quick and easy, like 20 minutes. You can turn your old t-shirt into a market bag, and it's thinking about like you're learning skills and you're using stuff you have it like you've already got, and you're giving it that second life, which I think is something for me that I really love, that you can just keep working into something and you just keep adding to it. It gets better and better. So I'm on that. I'm going to share my screen and talk you through a workshop. So this is what we're going to be making. Just out of an old t-shirt market bag. So I hope you've got your old t-shirts with you, and then we can get started on that. So all you're going to need today is an old t-shirt, a ruler, a pen, and some scissors. And this piece required like no sewing, so it's really easy. I've just got an old t-shirt from when I've been decorating. It's covered in paint. The charity shop wouldn't want it. I don't need it anymore. If you've got a bigger t-shirt, it's helpful, but if not, those sort of market bag slits will help us work into it. So you're going to want to fold it in half, and this is just where we're about to start cutting the sleeves off to give us our handles. And so you're going to want to cut the sleeves off, but I find like we can follow this line, and if you're trying to be quick, you can cut through both layers, but I find it easier to just cut through that first layer along that sleeve edge, and you want to kind of save as much of that width of that shoulder for your handle as possible. So cut along the edge, and I cut one sleeve, and then I use that to trace off the other, because it's just a little bit easier than trying to cut through 4 layers at once. And so you can put those to the side, and they're really useful just to keep, because, you know, those sleeves are perfect. Use them as washcloths, use them in your kitchen, you know, never waste anything. So now we're going to cut around the neck to do like the second bit of the handle. You don't want to cut too low because you don't want to lose too much of your body of your bag. And so for this one, I find it easier to cut through everything, trace it round, and snip that bit off. And so basically this top bit, it will look like a big kind of summer vest, then becomes the top of your bag. And then if you, those kind of shoulder straps, you want to try and keep as wide as possible. If your t-shirt is not very well sewn together at the top, you might want to slice the shoulders and tie them in a knot, but that's why we keep as much as possible. So the next bit we're going to get rid of is we're just going to cut off that bottom sewn hem, because when we give it the fringe, we want to kind of get a nice dangly fringe, and that bottom hem bit stops that bit on our t-shirt. So just cut along your stitch line, and again, I find it a lot easier if you cut through one side, trace it all the way round, and cut through the other side. And then you're just going to want to remove this piece from your t-shirt. And again, like, it's quite a well sewn strip, so this is quite good. You know, you can use it to tie, you can use it in your garden, like just try and keep, you know, as much of it as possible. So now we're going to cut the bottom of our t-shirt into strips, and this is then what will be our fringe and what we'll be able to tie. So if you want to grab your ruler, and so depending on how big your t-shirt is, so mine was an extra large, so I'm measuring up 14 centimeters, and this is just a rough guide. If you've got quite a small t-shirt, you might want to do 10 centimeters, but you just want to make sure that it's long enough so we can cut our strips and they're long enough to tie. And so I just sort of trace along, and when we cut and tie this, you're not going to see your line. You just want it enough so you can see it, so we know that we don't cut past that, because we obviously want to keep the body of our t-shirt for our bag. So now the strips, I think a good width is 2 centimeters. So if you cut up first the side to your line, and then just use your ruler to just, you know, this doesn't have to be super strict. So I've just placed it along to cut a few notches to get an understanding of what is 2 centimeters. And then you're just going to want to cut all the way up to that line. So hopefully you've got some sharpish scissors, and then you can just use that as a rough guide and go all the way across. If you're sort of someone who's super neat, you can draw all these lines. I got into crochet because I'm quite a slapdash maker, so you'll notice through this there's not really a wrong and a right. Once we kind of cut all these, we want them to be 2 centimeters ish, and it might feel like they're quite thick, but in a later stage, because it's jersey, you then sort of pull on the strip and it kind of makes it into a cord. So t-shirts are as well. This is obviously using it to make a bag, but if you're into kind of like, if you like macrame or crochet or knitting, t-shirt like material is really great sort of substitute for yarn, and you can cut into your t-shirts and just pull it and it forms more of a tube, and it's really good for other sort of craft projects. So you just want to work your way down the whole line. And because we're cutting through both sections at once, the front and the back, we know, like, we don't need to calculate how many strips we've got, because we know we're cutting them into pairs for when we tie them at a later stage. So just keep working your way down. And it's really helpful to do this sort of on a table or a smooth surface, because then you know that your fabric is like flat on both sides. And we're nearly at the end of that bit. And so if you're liking this sort of fringe, you can just do this. I mean, we're making our t-shirt into a bag, but it's really a great way to sort of jazz up an old t-shirt. You know, you can cut these strips and pull them and give anything a little bit of fringe, because I think I'm a sucker for fringe. So I love a little bit of fringe on anything. And then at the end, you just want to cut up the side. My t-shirt, you'll notice, doesn't have seams up the side because it's a circular bit of fabric. If you've got a seam, you just want to cut that out. So this stage you don't have to do. And if you've got a t-shirt with a design on you want to keep, you can kind of skip this bit. But you can see, like, this is how big my bag section is. And if I want to increase it, this is how we get the sort of market bag look. And by doing a sort of lattice cut on your bag, like on your t-shirt, it will stretch it, and it means that we can increase the volume So again, really roughly, we want to take our ruler, and at the edge, you just, where you've cut, you want to probably give yourself like 5 centimeters so you're not too close to the bottom of your bag. And I'm just going to use my pen to mark that. And then I'm going to do like 3 centimeters, 1, 2, 3, and then mark again. And then I'm going to do another 3 centimeters and do a little mark again, and another 3 centimeters and a little mark again. And I'm going to do one more, but again, you don't want to cut too close to that bottom of that handle, because t-shirt is really resilient, but it will only stretch so far. So now with your scissors, you just want to do a little cut about 1.5 to 2 centimeters in. And again, if you're really precise, you can draw this out, but I've just done it by eye. You then want to fold it over. So you've got, you know, you probably folded it over 2 centimeters. And we're going to now do our little cut again, but right in between our previous cut. And we're kind of going to follow this to make a brick-like pattern. And again, I'm not going to go too close to the top of the handle or too close to the bottom. And then you fold in a little bit again. And then you're going to want to repeat this across the whole of your bag. This is where it's really important, basically, to try and do it on a flat surface, that when you're working, you don't go too sort of wonky with your cuts. And so just keep an eye that you're not going too close to your handles. And so we're going to just repeat that, keep going across. So we fold it over, and then we just do our cuts. And because we're cutting on the fold and we're cutting between 1.5 to 2 centimeters, when you lie it flat, the slits in your work should be around 4 centimeters. If you go much bigger, when you pull it, your bag will become really mesh-like and probably a little bit too holy. So just keep an eye. You really just want to do that cut so it's not too deep. And then you just keep folding. And just, I think when you're making your bag, this is probably like the trickiest bit. Just be aware that you don't go too close to your other cuts. But if worse comes to worse and like 2 of your cuts like join, don't worry, you can use safety pin, you can sew it. It's really forgiving. And this will just basically increase and double the size of your bag. And you want to basically keep doing that all the way across. You can also, if your t-shirt is quite narrow, or you're using like a kid's t-shirt or a small t-shirt, instead of doing these slits this way along the t-shirt, you can also do them in the other direction. So these are going horizontal across our t-shirt, but you could fold it the same way and cut them vertically to give a bigger width to your t-shirt, rather like to your bag with your t-shirt, rather than more depth. And I think when you get about halfway like this, it's just good to check that when you're folding it, that you're trying to keep it as straight as possible, so you don't start cutting into like the bit that you've cut for your strap. And just make sure you can see at the top that there's quite a big depth from the middle before my first cut. And that this just means that your handles are going to stay secure, and that we can put, your market bag will be good for carrying quite a lot of stuff. And you just want to keep following that down. So if you were going to use a t-shirt for like yarn or a piece of fabric, quite like how we're cutting the strips through the middle, you could trace a line up, and right before you get to the top, you come down the other way and you kind of do a bit of a zigzag. And kind of like where the join is, where we're doing how far apart our cuts are now, you could do that in a straight bit of fabric. And it would give you a yarn, which is really fun to use for anything sort of homeware or accessories. It's a really good resource for using up old t-shirts or scraps of yarn. So we're coming towards the end of our piece. And can you see I've sort of skew-whiffed a little bit. And so instead of doing my last cut at the top, I've reduced my slits because I didn't want to cut too close to my handle. And I've put one more at the bottom to sort of level it out. And so just at the end, just make sure you're folding it as flat as you can, because holding it at the sides is quite important. So there's this row, and we've got one last row on our seam to cut. And the reason we do the cuts now, because it's a lot easier to cut our t-shirt and make this mesh before we tie the bottom. If you tie the bottom first, it distorts, which is harder to cut your line straight. So now you can see that it's kind of like the lattice on a pie. When we stretch, it like increases the volume of our t-shirt. And so if you want to make a nice top of a pie, you do the same in pastry. And so now we get on to the bit where we're sort of turning our fringe a bit more into cord. So what you're going to want to do is hold the top of the cord firm, and then you're just going to pull your thread, because in this bit we're going to be tying knots. So to make it easier to tie our knot, what we're going to do is you're going to hold on to your t-shirt and we're just going to pull. And so you want to work one side at a time, or each thread at a time, because you'll get the maximum stretch. And so you want to work your way across, just holding, and so hold the end and just give it basically a tug, and you'll see that your jersey strip will kind of curl in on itself and form more of a cord. And so we're going to work our way down the whole t-shirt doing that, and just make sure that you're holding on to your t-shirt or holding it onto the table so it's firm enough so you get the most stretch out of that piece. And so if you were going to be making t-shirt into yarn or cutting up, so jersey's great because it does this, it turns itself into a cord, and you can see it gets a much kind of tighter cord. That's why we chopped the hem off at the beginning. So I've now worked my way across the whole edge, and we get into the macrame section, flatten it all out. And all we're going to be doing is a really basic hitch knot, which is a really good entry level macrame knot. So you're going to take one strand from the front side and one strand from the back and fold it over itself so you get this sort of like point, and it's 2 layers of knot. So I'll talk it through again. You take the top strand and the bottom strand, fold the top strand in the direction of left and pull up through, fold it left up through the middle and give it a tug and work your way across. So we're taking the top, and just when you're doing this, spread it out so you make sure you're taking the top strand and the one from the bottom. So the top strand folds over the top of the bottom, pulls through, folds over, pulls through. And we're working our way across the whole of the bottom. So I'll talk that knot through again. So you're making sure you're getting the 2 that are in pairs. You take the top strand, you kind of fold it over the bottom strand a bit, like it will look like a number 4 or like a arrow that points to the left, and up through the middle and pull, and up through the middle and pull. And you repeat that twice, and it's a double hitch knot. And that will be strong enough to hold the bottom of your bag. And it's a really great entry level sort of macrame knot, and it's really easy. So this is a really fun, easy make that the whole sort of family can do. And if you're wanting, like I was saying, like if you want to make it slightly simpler, if you want to get younger sort of kids involved, you don't need to do the lattice work in the middle of the t-shirt. And so now I'm just racing through the bottom, and this is just, make sure it gets a little bit fiddly because you've obviously got 2 layers, but just make sure you're taking one from the top and one from the bottom, and you're working your way through. And just that you're doing it in that double hitch, that you're repeating the knot twice to just make sure that it's tied tight enough at the bottom. And you're going to carry that on all the way to the edge. And I love that this is just a real easy, you know, 20-minute, half an hour make, and you transformed that old dirty paint t-shirt that was going to sit in the bottom of a cupboard if you finished all your decorating and you're not going to, you know, or that t-shirt that's got a stain on that the charity shop won't want. But it gives it such, you mean, we get 1,000,001 tote bags from everywhere, but you just don't need that tote bag, and you can use your own old t-shirt. And there you have it, from one t-shirt. That's our fringe at the bottom that will hold nice and firm. And there, from one t-shirt, you're all done. And so, yeah, that is my tutorial today, to kind of show you how we can use stuff that we've already got and make it better. And I think for me, that's just a really important part to my brand, and a real important part to my making, because it was thinking about how, from what I've already got, from a bit of yarn, how can I make it better? Or how I've got this old Aran jumper that is a bit sad in a charity shop because a moth has got it, but the hours of work in that jumper and the cost of that material, that one little hole, you know, it's not going to stop. So then that's how I sort of started working into it. And so I hope that you enjoyed making your bag and learning a little bit more about my practice. But I think for everyone getting into sort of making things with our hands, I can't recommend it enough, because it really helps us have like a real good understanding of you know, what we're making and how much stuff should cost, and it gives us a really important lesson, I think, in that. And that, I think, is kind of me done, I think. Hello, Tamsin.
Hi, Katie. Hi there, everyone. I'm Tamsin Blanchard from Fashion Open Studio. Thank you so much, Katie. That was just brilliant. I can't wait to make this myself. Do you actually use a bag like this to go and do?
I do. I mean, I'm forever taking 1,000,000 balls of yarn everywhere. So I'm kind of a pack horse and a bag lady. So I have quite a few of them.
Right.
And I think, you know, it's one of those things where everyone thinks, you know, a tote bag is really green, but if we have 5 million tote bags, are they that green? And if we've got stuff that's in our possession and we can use it instead, rather than it sitting at the bottom of a cupboard, then it's probably better than getting a new tote bag.
What's so great about this project, though, is that it is a real beginner's way into macrame, but you actually make something that's useful and really great to look at. It's such a really brilliant project, and you're such a good teacher.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I think sometimes craft daunts people at first, because they think it's got to be really complicated or everything takes a really long time. But there's so many like good little projects that are really sort of gateways into learning more. And I think especially in this sort of really weird time where we're trapped inside and it's like really easy to get glued onto your phone, or you've got extra time and you're trapped inside. And I think it's a really also good time to, if you're doing a craft or something with your hands, you can't be doing something else. And I really find that actually, even for like your own mental health, it's kind of, I always call like any kind of crafting like meditation for fidgets, because you can kind of do something, you get in a zone, but you're not thinking about, a million things at once. And so I think it's really a good use of time. And I think a lot of people also now are getting into craft who are new to it, because of that, because they kind of want to do something to help them kind of zone out. And I think it's really good because more and more then people are learning, to do this, it actually, like, some things are quick, but some things, like crocheting a top is really long, and that's not a bad thing, it's really satisfying. But then you have like an understanding of, if this crochet top is only £10, but it's actually taken 20 hours to make, how does that compute? And it doesn't. So
we do see crochet on the high street, don't we?
And I think it's quite hard, I think, especially with a lot of those sort of hand crafts, is where also when they're sort of made, quite a lot of the time they're made by home workers, and then it's really hard to monitor actually like how many people in a household are physically making, and it's that thing where it just takes a long time. Like, lots of this crochet on the high street is the same. I love colour, so I have like a million colour changes and everything, which is quite a lot of like this festival summer crochet. And I look at things, and one of the reasons also why I kind of changed from like selling wholesale, because I like things colourful, sometimes something would have like 10 hours of ends to sew in, and then you're like, how does that then even work for then these like really colourful pieces? Because that's mainly what is on sale, and you're like, not even the skill, it's like just even the finishing techniques for it are like such a huge amount of work. And
it's not until you actually do it yourself that you realize the work.
No, not at all. But also I think what is nice, and I think what I found when I was like selling, everything had to get simpler and simpler and simpler to make, the right price point. But when you're making it for yourself, you might spend 100 hours just, half an hour a night watching EastEnders for a few months, and then you make it at the end. And I think that's sort of slower process. Like, you can't consume in the same way your clothes if you're producing them yourself, because you can't, it's not like you go into a shop and then you're like, this one, this one, this one. You really like think about the piece. And I think I also love that, like the thought that you put into it. And if you're making something for someone and you give it a gift, it's like I think it's such a lovely gesture, because you've been thinking about that person for like that dedicated amount of time, and then you sort of gift it to them. It's a sort of and in this kind of circumstance, I think it's like one of the biggest gifts you can give to people quite a lot of the time is your time, because everyone's normally so busy.
Yeah, that's so true. What projects have you got on at the go at the moment, Katie?
Too many. I've got I'm making a jumper, but it's very colourful, which means it's got a million ends, and I'm very bad. I tell everyone who crafts to like do your ends as you go, bit by bit, and I'm very much do as I say, not as I do, because I sort of leave it all to the end and then have like a mammoth sewing in. But that's a nice jumper.
You're such an expert, you can do that though, can't you? What else are you making?
So I'm making jumper. I'm really enjoying this sort of, enjoying is the wrong thing, but this downtime means a lot of people are getting into crafting. So I've also been doing like every week like a free tutorial, like teaching a new technique and using like my Instagram to put it out there. So trying to get people who haven't started or have been a bit nervous to start really sort of easy chunks. And I think that's what's really lovely, is that sense that everyone's making something, but also using, I suppose, like why Fashion Revolution is amazing, like really using social media to be social, and to sort of join together as a community. So I've been doing a sort of step-by-step each week, and I love it because also it like absorbs a whole day of my week.
So when can we watch you doing that?
I do it, I always said Sunday, and then the weekends have been nice, so I've been gardening. So it normally comes out on a Wednesday, and I put like it all up on my blog, and I've been doing sort of YouTube videos to guide everyone through it, because I think when it's things with your hands, like YouTube and like the internet have been great, because loads of people who maybe I got taught by my granny and my mum, but if it's missed a generation, like reading how to hold your hand and how to do it in a book is really uninstinctual, you know, to like work out how to do it. And so I think things like online learning for crafts has really been like a revolution. So people anywhere, even if you don't have a nice granny to teach you, are able to teach themselves.
Yeah. And you have some really amazing patterns that people can download and
yeah, I try and make it as easy as possible. So I was finding, because a lot of people are learning online, but then all the patterns were quite either old-fashioned, or just you go from learning online and learning visually to getting like a piece of paper which is just like another language. And I think that's really daunting. And it means why I think crochet as a thing, because actually crochet grows really quickly, and it's really easy to pick up and put down. So it's kind of the perfect, like, you know, if you're a busy person, you just want to do a little bit here and there. And a lot of people make blankets, or they learn the very basics, and then they're kind of overly daunted by garments, but they're so easy. And so in the patterns, I really try and do like a lot of photos step by step, and make them for people that don't normally follow patterns. And I run the business like with my mum, and I think it's the one thing that I changed, I think, like my thought, because when I sold to stores, you kind of sell to store and you don't really know who your customer is all the time, or like you try and guess their age range or like what they do. And then the minute that we sort of made the brand kind of open source, basically that's what it is, it's like open source fashion, it was so nice to see the people actually that are engaging with the work, and like how different your customer is, or like how sort of broad it is. And I think it's really nice because you can make something that is like unique to you. So I love rainbow color, and when I was selling, that's what I sold. And so if you liked crochet but you didn't love rainbow, I didn't have it. But the thing which is amazing about sort of patterns is you can love the design, but you can do it all in neutral tones and get something that's completely different and like completely bespoke to you. And then I find that the minute that someone has that sort of attachment, that it feels made for them, or it is like bespoke, then the amount that you look after it and you sort of treasure it really sort of ups, which then just means that we keep stuff for longer, which is really like has then such a knock-on impact to everything else.
Yeah, well, I have to say, I mean, your colourful world is really irresistible. Just before we go on to our next designer today, Paolo Carzana, is there a follow-on project that you would recommend from this once you've started getting into the idea of macrame? Is there something you'd recommend to go on to next?
Yeah, I think like if you're kind of really enjoying macrame, again, like cut up that t-shirt, go on like YouTube. I think especially when we're inside, like I can't, like doing a small project, and if you want something sort of like a little bit instant like this, rather than maybe like jumping onto a garment or anything. There's so many like fun plant pot hanger projects for your plant babies. And they're really good to understand working in form and working in the round, because then if you wanted to bring it into an accessory or a garment, you just use all the same sort of techniques that you've learned. So the next knot to learn other than a hitch knot is a flat knot. And once you can do those 2 knots, you basically can macrame anything.
Wow, how fantastic. Thank you so much, Katie.
Thank you.
You're always such an inspiration.
Thank you very much, Tamsin. Thanks, guys.
Thanks. So we're now going to be joined by a different designer. We're going over to Paolo Carzana, who has just finished his MA in fashion design at Central St. Martin's, and is going to be talking us through his final collection, which has a really interesting narrative to it and some really interesting stories about some of the materials that he uses to make his collections. Paolo is a really extraordinary designer. He graduated from the University of Westminster for his BA, and then won the Caring Scholarship to carry on his studies at Central St. Martin's. And he graduated with the other students just in February, just ahead of the lockdown. So it's been a really challenging time, I think, for all of those students. Really just, being at the peak of their creative powers and finding that everything's locked down and they can't really show the work in the way that they wanted to carry on showing it. So, Paolo, are you there?
Yeah, hello.
Hi, Paolo. Hi.
So,
yeah, I think it would be really interesting for us to really hear about what happened, actually. So you'd finished your degree and you'd had your amazing show, and you were the finale at the Central St. Martin's show, which is always a great honour. And then you were there ready to show your work and talk through your sketchbooks, and we kind of started going into lockdown. What happened at that point?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really funny place to be in, because obviously the only thing that we're all really concerned about at the moment is just the health of the world and the health of everyone. So also not really thinking about myself, or I imagine the other students thinking about themselves or their work, just really wanting everyone to heal through this period. But yeah, also just understanding the reality of where we are, sort of speaking on, I guess, behalf of my graduating year. I'm really nervous, by the way, so I'm sorry if I say anything that sounds quite silly. Speaking on behalf of my year, I would say it was definitely a shock, because I mean, I've been sort of working towards this for 7 years now, with foundation and BA, and a year in industry on BA, and then the MA, putting so much effort into the collection at the end. And I think a lot of the working towards the show, it's a really amazing thing to be a part of, and a really sort of beautiful moment for the year group. But I think it's more about what comes after. And I really enjoy sort of working with other creative people in the industry and seeing how that they sort of interpret my work in different situations. And so for that kind of aspect to have almost vanished, I think that's quite upsetting. And you know, to have put so much of yourself in your collection for it to then for all of the sort of after experiences to be put on hold is quite sad, but it's so okay. So
yeah, so you've gone back to Cardiff, where you're talking to us from today. So talk to us a little bit about the collection. You have very poetic titles to your collection. What was this one called?
So the MA collection that I presented in February is really a sequel to my BA. And yeah, very honest, and it's funny that people say poetic, because it's for me just sort of an honest sort of interpretation of how I feel. So it's quite nice if someone says that about it. So my BA was The Boy You Stole, and that was really about a very dark time in my life. And during my time on the MA at CSM, I really healed from that past. And that's why I sort of came up with the title, The Boy Who Came Back to Life. And it was really a sort of hope and a sort of offering to everyone in terms of trying to sort of create a sense of hope for everyone else and a sense of healing for everyone else. And it not being sort of self-indulgent, but it being a place and a sort of idea that other people could understand and be informed by, I guess.
So it's very autobiographical, your work, and there's a real story, isn't there, that you follow, and the story for The Boy Who Came Back to Life. Well, actually, as your previous collection, there's a lot about healing in that, and I think it's really interesting. I mean, I suppose particularly during Fashion Revolution Week and thinking about Earth Day also, you know, we've been asking, as well as who made my clothes, we've also been asking this week, what's in my clothes? And you can tell us exactly what is in your clothes, can't you? From what you've used to dye the materials, to the material that was used to actually create the materials in the first place, the fibers. You work a lot with Pinatex, don't you? Can you tell us a little bit about what that is and why it's attractive to you?
Yeah, I mean, just going off of what Katie was saying earlier, I thought it was really nice just listening to her, because I know that she mentioned about 5 or 6 years ago there being not much around sustainability in education. And so it's quite nice that now today, at CSM anyway, the MA tutors are really, they really show the importance of sustainability and our own approach to it, rather than sort of following a generic route. And it's nice to know that a lot has changed in 5 to 6 years, and now I can say that our own approach to sustainability is something that's sort of included on every project brief. It's something that we always have to think about. And I think in terms of moving forward for education and in terms of moving forward for students, that's really uplifting and really hopeful.
That's really interesting. Was that was really brought in properly this year, wasn't it? That every project had a sustainability criteria.
Yeah, I mean, I did my BA at Westminster, so I'm not sure about before, but I was at CSM for 18 months, and since my first day, it was talked about, and it was, you know, an important subject that we had to be aware of and be mindful of. And I always sort of like the way that the tutors sort of talk about it and how we have to think about what's sustainable, but also what's, Fabio always says, what's not sustainable to us, which I think is a nice thing.
And I think it was interesting because you won the Caring Scholarship, which was because of your sustainability and the way that you think about materials and the stories that go into your clothes. Yeah. And you were joined this year. There were 2 caring scholars, weren't there? There was also Matthew Needham.
Yeah.
And you both have a very different approach. But I wonder if you influenced the other students on your course in the way that you were working.
I don't think so. I think I was definitely inspired by my peers. And I think everyone is thinking about it now. And yeah, I don't think that I influenced anyone, but yeah. I do think that I do a lot of work on the short courses and on the Insights program at CSM, which is a really amazing program, working with disadvantaged kids from around London, trying to give them support for their applications to higher education. And I have really, really loved being able to show them my work and to inspire them. And I think at that age, I would have loved to have had someone sort of come to me and show me the possibilities of how you can work in a positive way for sort of social and environmental things.
Yeah. The slide that we're looking at the moment, can you tell us a little bit more about what's in your clothes? What are these materials? They look as though they're decomposing on the body.
Yeah, I mean, the photo on I don't know if it's mirrored or if people can see what I can see, but the photo on the right of Ryan is actually it was a really special piece for me. It ended up being worn by Adwa for the finale of the show, and it was about a woman from a healing well in just outside of Cardiff that I was inspired by. This really amazing story, which you can sort of go and look up if you want to. So it came from that, but the actual garment itself is made up of all sort of woolen knitted jumpers that I got from charity shops across mainly East London. And then I've over-dyed them with Cambodian mud, which gives it that very sort of organic looking shades of different blacks and blues and browns. And yeah, I really liked the aspect of it that before it had even been sort of presented, but within the making of it, obviously sourcing the jumpers from the charity shops means that instantly, before it's even been constructed, the money has gone towards the shops that I bought the materials from. So I really liked that, and I didn't really intend for it to be like that. It just sort of happened.
Yeah. You said Cambodian mud?
Yeah.
Can you tell us a bit more about that?
I mean, to be honest, I don't know loads about Cambodian mud, but I had seen, I don't know if anyone watching this has seen First They Killed My Father, which is a really, really beautiful documentary about, sadly, about the Vietnam War that was directed by Angelina Jolie. And there's a scene in it where they dye all their clothes with the mud. And I found it so amazing. I just thought, oh my God, I have to somehow get my hands on that. And so it's just like the soot mud that's used and somehow extracted and then mixed with water, and I put all sorts of different oils in with all my natural dye-in. So for this look in particular, if I remember right, I worked with lavender oil, which was actually one of my nan's favourite scents. But lavender oil is known for being very helpful for people with anxiety. And I really loved the idea of sort of creating this cauldron of healing powers for each of the outfits. And then this one in particular was with that Cambodian mud. It was with the lavender oil. And then I also worked with healing water with sort of sulfuric healing powers that I'd taken from the well in Taft's Well. So it was a really strange combination of what I like to imagine would be a sort of healing power, energy, feeling from the garment, and then it ended up being worn by Adwa and projected on the building of CSM, and I found it really strange because the lady that it was inspired by sort of made her way from Wales all the way to CSM.
Oh wow, she was there.
No, just just in spirit.
Yeah, her spirit was there. Yeah, it was really magical ending to the show, actually.
Yeah.
This look here is this what was used to make this?
That's the same one. Yeah.
Okay. Tell us about we were starting to talk about Pinatex as well. Can you tell us how you started working with Pinatex and why you wanted to find an alternative to leather?
Yeah. I mean, as a vegan, I suppose, I have never sort of intended to work with animal leather. I appreciate that working with secondhand and working with found discarded pieces is good, but just on a personal level, I think so much of what I'm sort of trying to do is sort of find my way to create a contemporary luxury, and I feel that Pinatex is really representative of that. And I've actually been working with them since my BA, since my final year. And this was sort of before this was very early on in the, in time of when they were producing it, and it was becoming Ananas Anam, the name of the company, when they were producing Pinatex and when it was becoming available for companies to use and work with. I reached out and I just said, I really, really love the sound of what you're doing in terms of, they work with the waste leaf fiber from pineapple plantation, and it's sourced in the Philippines, and they do so much there in terms of helping the local community. And that was a sort of really fundamental part to why I found them so inspiring, because there's lots and lots of vegan leather alternatives, but this is something that's completely different. It's really innovative, and it has so many amazing background stories to it, rather than on top of the fact that the material itself is so beautiful. So I reached out, sorry if I'm mumbling on a bit.
No, this is great.
I reached out to them when I started my final year of my BA, and I said I'd really, really love to work with you. If you do any sort of student sponsorships, that would be amazing. But they instantly came back and just said, we're at the beginning of this thing, and we'll keep you in mind for the future. And then I came back and I said another message about how inspiring I found them. And in the end, an amazing woman called Kerry Reese, who works at Ananas Anam said, okay, I'll meet you if you come to Somerset House, funnily enough, and we can talk. And I showed sort of a brief presentation of my intentions for my BA collection, and thankfully Kerry saw worth in my work to support it, and they ended up sponsoring me, you know, going forward. And I think that for me was a really life-changing moment. It was one of the first sort of times that I felt really supported by an initiative that I believed in so much and had so much respect for. So I felt very, very lucky to be.
That's interesting, and I mean a really good lesson as well in persistence, gentle persistence.
Yeah.
And because you used a lot of the materials in, and you had very big silhouettes, didn't you, in your BA collection, and then they went on to did they sponsor you for your MA collection as well?
Partially, yeah. And in what was really great about, well, not really great, but what I enjoyed myself was being able to work with the material in BA and bring in sort of a new context to it, because at that point it hadn't been used in, it's a bit cliche to say, but I suppose in an avant-garde way as such. And so I felt very lucky to have been able to do that. And then moving forward with the MA collection, so much of what I tried to do was really focused on garment construction for the person wearing what I've made. It was something weirdly that I hadn't sort of touched on before.
Right.
So being able to, again, bring a new context to the material in a more contemporary and luxury way, I think was, for me, exciting.
Yeah. And we're looking now at, are these Welsh blankets that you used?
Yeah, so these are from a company called Melyn Tregwynt, if I've said that correctly. I am Welsh, but I cannot really pronounce Welsh words the most amazingly. But again, they were a company that I had reached out to. It's a Welsh mill in northern Wales, and I think it's dating back to the 17th century. So it's a really old technique, like Welsh tapestry blankets. And again, I felt on a personal level, I've been, you know, sort of dipping back into my roots within Wales, and I felt that this material hadn't had sort of a moment in sort of a contemporary way, or in a sort of contemporary I don't know, sort of like language today in fashion. And I felt very, very motivated to give it that moment, and to also bring back the importance of Welsh craft and Welsh textiles. And for me, I felt really, really lucky to be able to work with them. Again, they sponsored me for my MA collection, and it felt like a blessing to really be able to show off this textile and bring back the importance, I guess, of Welsh craft, because I think weirdly it's not something that's maybe spoken about.
Yeah. Did you work with them to actually custom woven fabric?
I'm hoping to in the future. For this, it was material that they already have. So yeah, I'm hoping in the future to work with them to sort of create my own textiles with them.
Yeah.
But it's like small steps of bringing it into the industry.
What other dyeing methods did you use for this?
So what's on the screen now, the green suit, which is, if I sort of talk about it, the jacket is the pineapple leather, which I think is a really nice piece. And then the trousers are actually, I think they're probably a fabric that's meant for blinds in your house, which I sourced from Portobello Market, from this amazing man called Andrew. And the dye-in to create these sort of colours, the green shades here, was a mix of holy basil oil, spinach, so like real spinach leaves that you buy.
Yeah.
There was also indigo powder, natural indigo powder, and red onion skin as well.
Wow. And did you do this yourself?
I did this in my tiny little room in Camden, in a massive, the pots that you get to make sort of big curry dishes and things like that.
Right.
I did it in one of them, yeah.
Okay.
And then the shirt there is made up of a organic banana fiber, cellulose fiber fabric, which I got from this amazing workers cooperative in India. They do all these incredible organic cellulose fibers. So within the collection, there's banana, rose cellulose fiber, orange fiber, aloe vera fiber, which is, as you can see from the shirt, is very, very delicate. And what I liked in terms of design was the contrast in the sort of sensitivity to these fabrics in comparison to the sort of more rough and more heavy duty overlayers.
I love this approach that you have to the dyes in your clothes. Do you think that people are going to start to really think more about the chemicals that are in their clothes, in the way that they do about skincare, or, the chemicals that are used to grow their vegetables? Is there something that you think is going to be more prevalent going forwards?
That's a really, really interesting point, and a really good point. Yeah, it's crazy that people don't think about it in the same way as thinking about food and what we put in our bodies. I guess I could say I only hope so. What is quite strange is that I was working towards this idea of really trying to create healing garments for the wearer, or the person wearing them, through the oils and through, in fact, in the research to this particular collection, I went on a pilgrimage to northern Italy and the place in Wales I was talking about earlier, Taff's Well, to find these healing waters with the sulfur powers. I sort of bottled it up, brought it back, and used that within these dyeing processes. And I think it's quite strange because unknowingly is quite relevant to what's going on today. Some of the oils that I used, like I think oregano was actually the oil that I used on this one, the orange shirt that you can sort of just see underneath. That's got antibacterial properties in, and is sort of maybe something can be said for it today, and where we are with this pandemic, and how the clothes that we wear could help us in terms of protecting us from things that are out there.
I think the idea that I was reading something about saying that COVID-19 could be carried in particles of pollution in the air. And it really makes you just question everything, I think. And I think for you to be thinking about those kind of ideas, you know, in the ingredients that go in to make our clothes is obviously really important. We haven't got much longer, unfortunately, though we could talk forever. We have a short film that you've made an amazing film this week for this project, especially, which Somerset House will be showing on their website, and which Fashion Revolution will also be showing on our YouTube channel. So anybody can go and watch it there. We'll have a short teaser for it after this. But I just wanted to quickly touch on a project that you're about to start on. I think you're hoping to start on May the 1st, that you were telling me for the London menswear Fashion Week, which is all going to be digital, which is happening in July. Is it July? Yeah. June. And you're going to be, tell us about what you're going to be doing. You're going to be making a collection in a month.
Yeah, I mean, I hope so. I've just sort of, I was out on my daily walk and I had this idea, which, yeah, I really hope that I'll be able to go through with, obviously because of the pandemic, the BFC are going to launch London Fashion Week to go online as a digital platform in June. So for me, I'm in sort of a financially dangerous place at the moment. And I've been sort of trying to think of ways in which I could help that. And also realizing that, you know, my creativity really does come hand in hand with my personal well-being, and how that I do really need to keep active in being creative. So what I'm hoping to do is working with, I have quite a lot of leftover materials from my BA and from my MA. So I'm hoping to start on May the 1st and put together a 10-look collection with these materials, which will then go into a sort of online shop, which I'm in the process of working out, called The Factory. And then I'll hopefully present that in June in a digital format in some way. Yeah.
Okay, that's wonderful. And we can, I imagine, follow your progress via your Instagram.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll be doing that. Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing a little bit of your very, very rich world today, Paolo. We're going to have a short burst of the film that you've made this week. Thank you so much for making that. And please do, everybody, watch this. Go on and watch the full length. After
I just wanna say as well, thank you, Tamsin, and thank you, Orsola. You're both like the fairy godmothers of this industry, and I'm very grateful for your support.
Oh, that's very sweet. Thank you, Paolo. thanks so much, Paolo. And please do watch Paolo's self-isolation video after this afternoon session. So onward to a very different kind of vibe altogether. We're going to have some fun and games now. We're going to join Congregation Design. Congregation are a collective of designers who work anonymously. They all have their own day jobs where they work for themselves or the other designers or other brands, or they teach, and they come together really to have some fun creatively. And here we're about to experience a little bit of their world as they play some games with us and some of their clothes. Over to you, Congregation.
Hello. Hi, everybody. So I wanted to thank you first, Tamsin, and the Somerset Arts team for being, for inviting us today. It's really amazing what you've been doing all the week, and I hope that we just add on to the good work we've been done so far. So I'm Marie. I'm a fashion designer, and I'm teaching in different universities in London. And I'm going to say a little bit more about congregation design before we go to the game, so you can get your head around what is our vibes. So congregation design is a collective of anonymous designer who started like 3 years ago. Actually, we just graduated when we were like, looking for our first job, and didn't find any places where we thought we were dreaming to work to. We thought that this place, ideal place, wasn't existing yet. So we thought, then hang on, maybe what we have to do is just to create like a space where we could, just work on our own and be creative as we want, and just experiment stuff. So that's what we did, and did the congregation being created. So I would say now it's more like a laboratory where we experiment processes. So from a really wide range of the fashion industry. So from the design process that we're challenging quite a lot, but as well through the way we make things, the way we produce, the way we as well think about how to promote, and everything really, because we really want to make each part of the processes like sustainable and fair and enjoyable for everybody, from the customer to the designer through the maker. So that was really, really important. Now, I'm not gonna lie, that's, as you said, Tamsin, we've got all our job, because creating an ideal place doesn't mean that's gonna, bring money, but at least it's enjoyment. And that's the number one rule in congregation. When you join in, at some point, if it becomes too much or if it's too stressful, then you can, pause and come back whenever you're ready. So the way we work, we're starting like for the first collection, we were 10 designers, and the way we work is like you receive, when you participate, like a book of research, and from that, you do whatever you want. There is no creative direction at all. You just receive the research and later on the deadline. That's the only thing you have to deal with. Saying that, from project to the other, not everybody is always like available, and so we make sure that the team is fluid. So people start participating in one project, doesn't have to do the next collection. They can come back in 10 years' time, hopefully, or never, or just being one of participation. So that's why we now like 35 designer. So when I say designer, there is a really wide range of people who does like, there is some cabinet maker, some stylist, some image maker, photographer. In terms of designer, there is menswear, womenswear. It's really like, we really want to bring everybody together. So that's what we aiming to do. So as well, there is no seasonality in the way we work. So we can't being expected to do like a collection every 6 months, because everybody knows that is really draining. And it would be like, I mean, we really want the resources to be, to make the best of them. So we take the time to looking for them, to experiment around them. That's why I love to say that we just speak whenever we've got something to say. So I think today we've got something to say. And because it's a really difficult time, I think it's like great that Fashion Week was this week to kind of motivate the people, like the students I've been teaching to, even surrounding family. I think it's really important to keep the motivation going and everybody like being really positive and make the best of what we can, the time we've got at home, to maybe rethink the way we are as a customer, but as well the way we are as a creative mind. So not everybody is a designer. However, everybody got clothes at home. So that's what we're gonna play with today. And I'm gonna give over to Masha, which gonna be hosting our game, Sculpture by Chance, today.
Hello everyone. My name is Masha Mandeli. I'm a fashion stylist and artist. And today I will be doing Sculpture by Chance. Basically, Sculpture by Chance, a variation of my ongoing project called Styling by Chance. And I work on this with a photographer based in Belgium called Frederic Bastien. We dress people by throwing dice, and then we photograph them in UK and Belgium and hopefully in other countries. But at the moment we don't have models, but we still have clothes. So we try to shift the way we think and see what we can do with clothes. And today we're going to do sculpture. So I'm just going to explain you the game. So I have the dice, and the dice, when you throw it, it will give you the amount of cards you can pick. And the cards, you pick them without knowing how they correspond with the clothes. And once I pick them, I will go to the tree and find the clothes. And then I make a sculpture. So who wants to play?
We would like
the
to
dice
play.
On your behalf.
Is Tamsin or Scott around, so we can have a...
Hi, yeah, I'm here. I want to play.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, I'm throwing the dice for you. 5. Okay, we have 5 cards you can pick. So now tell me which cards you want out of this.
So Tamsin, you need to select 5 numbers out of the cards.
Okay, I choose 5 numbers.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, I'd like 7, 38, 2.
38, 1 second. 38, 42.
38 in the middle, we can see it.
38.
Yes.
Number
42.
2. Yeah, number 2.
Number 2.
Which?
Yes.
Is that? Can I have one more?
Yes, you have one more.
5, which is on the bottom line.
Yes. Okay, so these are your numbers. So now I'm going to go and find them on the tree. So
when Masha is going to find them on a tree, I'm going to say a little story about each of them, because I think what is really important as a designer as well is the narrative, what you want to say through your garments, because there is enough garment in the world, isn't it? So I think our mission as a designer is like everything we create from now on should have a story, a unique story. So about this sleeve, it's like a little sleeve you put on your arm, and it's really popular in Korea. We did a project with one of the other designer, part of congregation in Korea. Oh, so that's a belt. So I'll come back to that. We just did an exhibition, and out of the exhibition, it was all this toshi, that's the way they call them, left. And so we just decided to reuse them and to print over the top the congregation logo. And that was the new life. About the bed that Masha just showed. Oh, let's jump to this one now. This is a hole-in-one. So this one have been made by Sana for the first collection. So the first collection was like a series of images about like movement and body. So this one's been made like from Porto, Bello Market, end of fabric roll. So it was really beautiful and unique. And we knew from the beginning it wouldn't be another piece like that. Thanks, Masha. So that's
the belt.
The belt. And this is this one is the banana skin. We call the banana skin top. So it's like a menswear top and it's quite a large size. However, it's made with like monofilament, and so it like reduces itself because it's made out of rib as well. The other belt that I didn't manage. Oh, okay, we carry on with the trousers. Really good. So that's made by the designer number 5 because all the designer got number. And this one, so she's a Kirsty. She's a London-based maker. Her studio is in Brixton, and he did this set of menswear, like the top and the bottom together, going with the collection number 2. Thanks, Masha. So there is quite a lot. So I think we've got everything, do we?
No, we have 49 garments.
Oh, but I mean, we have everything for Tamsin. So we're ready to do a sketch.
Yes, we have. Yeah.
So let's, so yeah, about the belt, and I never will talk about. So the belt is just coming basically from a bag made in Korea, but I bought in a charity shop a while ago. And it was just like, you know, those all camping bag, really beautiful with all the system to, to make it doesn't hurt your bag. And that was really fascinating. And from one bag, I just cut it off and made like a top, which is currently exhibited in Sydney. And the belts. And I did some as well sleeves and some bags. So with one object, I did make a lot of them. So I think that's every garment, the story about every garment. Now we're gonna create with each of them a new story. So Masha is like making a set, creating a set. So Masha is a stylist, sorry. She's a Russian and she's working in London like for a while now. And when I first talked to her about this afternoon project event, she was like really down because it became really difficult to do like a photo shoot, and that's her job, to organize them, to navigate around, to get garments from every places, and then gather people around like one set one day and do magic. As she couldn't do that, she was really up for the challenge today with congregation. And I think that could be something like an installation or put your garment together could be something you could easily do at home. We would like as well today to launch a hashtag, which is a sculpture by chance. So if you want to picture what you're gonna make from home, so it could be any set, then you would just like send the picture through the hashtag or send through the email, and then we would love to feature that into our next zine. Because as well, along collection, we do zine. We take time because we do a lot of different stuff. So what do you think, Masha? Is it complete? Did we have a nice picture?
It's ready. The sculpture is ready.
So this is your picture. This is your sculpture, Tamsin. Happy about? I love it. Really personal.
Love it. What can I do with it? Where can I want to come and pick it up? Do I have to make it myself now at home?
Well, I mean, you could do one at home actually, because we're going to be able to see after that. So that'd be
I love it.
lovely. So I really encourage everybody at home to, make some stuff, get creative. Just take a picture and already become abstract. So we're going to go back to Masha. Is Scott around, or should we have a... Oh, cool.
Hi, Marie.
Hey,
Scott's
Scott.
here. Hi,
Hi,
can you hear me? Hi, Masha.
Yes. Hi.
Hi.
So,
Okay, so
I'm
I get
just
to
going to
choose.
throw dice on your behalf.
Sure.
Okay. Oh, wow, you have 6.
Oh.
Oh, wow. Oh, gosh.
Maximum impact. You're going to be amazing. So which numbers do you like?
Okay, so let me just see. So I would take 38, as I'm giving away my age.
I think
Slightly.
it's been
I think it's been already taken. Yeah, take the numbers that are in here.
Let's take 37.
37.
I'll take number 9, my birthday.
Number 9.
It's on the 3rd.
Yes.
Yeah. I will take 25. Yeah,
That's your edge, Scott.
Ah.
Oh, too kind.
And 3 more.
I'll take number 13 for good luck, bad luck.
13. Oh, yes.
I will take number
Always
45.
good luck.
Oh, 45, just because you were there, Masha, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah, and let me see.
2 more.
Oh, 2 more. Number 15?
Yes. 1 more. No, 1 more.
Number 15.
Sorry, just 1 more.
15. 5. You hear me, Masha?
Which one?
What?
It's number
yes.
Number 15.
Number 15.
Yeah, just at your foot,
yes.
I think.
Cool.
Thank you.
Okay.
Exciting. Oh my gosh.
So.
Thanks, Scott.
Okay. Number 9.
Oh, beautiful.
Oh, beautiful.
Nice. Thanks, Masha. So that's been made by Sophie. She's been joining for the second collection because when we invited her for our first event, she's been really touched by what we've been doing. And I think at the time of her life, she really, was happy to contribute into something more creative as she went to, after BA, something more like digital. So she was happy to go back to, the making. Oh, this one's been made by Ted, the designer number 10. So Ted is a teacher, is a knitwear teacher, and as well a practitioner freelance. So he does a lot of film costume for film. And I think it's like, I can say he's our older member. So I think it's, more than 60, yeah. And I think he showed that all the coverage of congregation. Oh, this one with love from Paris. This is actually made by Laetitia. At the time, she was working in a big company in Milan, fashion company, menswear, and she found the time on her own to collage some of leftover from a MA collection at the RCA. So as Paolo said, it's always good to make the best and give value again to the piece you've got during those time and to make use of them. This is an upcycling cycling shot. So I don't know if you remember the first piece we went through together was a toshi, this kind of sleeve that we did in Korea for this architecture biennale. So the short, nice. So the short is made full of that. So it's a lot of sleeve cutouts, make flat, and then build into a cycling short. Then what Masha just shown is the jacket who goes with the trousers. So that's really lucky we did get a duo. So that's again been made by Kirsty in Brixton. And she's working now and did open her own brand, which she does mainly upcycling tops and denim pieces made to order. So again, it's interesting, like to say as a thank you, Masha, number 25. Okay. It's interesting to say that craft is really important and something we don't want to lose. I think it's really a struggle to be in London and be someone who do craft, because it comes to cost so much when you put the time, you know, on the timesheet. It's just, and really difficult to afford for the people, and that's not what we want. However, this is a kind of piece that you would keep for life. And as well, I would really encourage people to don't be, you know, it's to don't hesitate to reach designer, because I think now with Instagram, I mean even Twitter or the website, you can easily go to their personal website and send them an email. Even if you, I shouldn't probably say that, even if you see them on the shop, then you just Google their name and just try to reach them. Because if you buy something from a designer straight away, first you will have a really special delivery from them. And then if it's become like the garment become irrelevant, I mean, or in terms of size, if it's too small, too big, I'm sure they would be happy to, you know, change it for you and to adapt. And as well, talking about like funding, is as well all the money you would spend, you know, give to a shop, which is for standing by street, the price of a garment, that all goes for the designer. And so that's make a huge difference, I think. And I definitely think that by this time we can think about the industry as we all got our say, because we all customer. So I think maybe it's like the way of rethinking our value and how we consume and how we do things. Quickly, I'm just going to go this last one. That's Masha haven't yet put to the sculpture. It's a belt, a scarf belt done in Paris by Tim. Is working in a big design company. I think that's as well something good about the anonymity of congregation. Designer can work in companies and just like don't do, you know, don't sign that design, because it's the design at the heart of our practice. It's not our name. It's not about that. And that was really relevant actually to see how, you know, for example, Paolo, you didn't show your face. It was really about your work. And I think it's like really something that's more and more even students are really happy with. So now Masha is placing the number. So how does it look, Masha?
Yeah,
You're
looking
not finished yet?
No, but I am now.
The final touch?
Yes.
Okay.
I think it's a moving sculpture.
Oh, moving sculpture, like excellent. Okay. Are you happy, Scott, about your sculpture?
I think it looks absolutely fantastic. It's sort of a kind of fashion magic carpet sculpture, and fabulous. What are the people behind you saying, Masha? Are they sort of excited?
They're my neighbors. Yes.
Oh,
oh, sorry.
Very good. It's fabulous. Yes. Great sculpture. Congrats.
Cool.
So fabulous. That's it. And what I would like to add, possibly, I really, really encourage everybody who sits at home now to do something like this. Maybe not like this, but something like this, possibly at home with things you have. And I think everybody's motto should be, you know, make do with what you have, make and fake.
Wow.
Use your imagination to create something really out of ordinary, because we're living through a bit extraordinary time. So yes, that would be my advice and encouragement to all the young designers.
Oh, thank you, Masha. Thank you very much. So yes, if you've been following the workshop with Masha, or even if you do it later today, please do feel free to tag it, and Masha would be happy, and congregation would be happy to share it and to make it part of our next Zino.
What are we tagging it with, Marie?
Oh, so the
Sculpture by chance.
Yes, culture by chance.
Hashtag.
That's absolutely amazing. I love that. And, you know, and I love the idea of using what you have and using your imagination and having a play. I think we've seen quite a lot of playing with clothes this week. And I think it really is reconnecting people with their wardrobes and, you know, with the idea that actually clothes are, you know, such a really vital way of expressing ourselves and having fun and showing your creativity. That was amazing, and I hope you fly somewhere really beautiful on your clothing magic carpet, Scott.
Yes, it's
so much.
Beautiful destination in our imagination.
Yeah, thank you so much, Masha and Marie and all of Congregation for showing us all of your fantastic pieces. I'm now really excited to welcome Bethany Williams to join us. Bethany, I think, has been waiting patiently, listening into all of the proceedings. Bethany was the second winner of the Queen Elizabeth II Design Award, and also that was last year, and also won the British Fashion Council's British Fashion Award for Emerging Menswear Designer. And she's just an all-round star. Everything that she does is done with such consideration, and really, you know, you are a shining example, Bethany, of a new business model and the way that fashion can be made and the way that fashion should be made. Are you there, Bethany?
Hi. Thank
hi.
you.
Hi.
Hi.
Great.
Yeah.
So you've been working on a project all week, really, with Somerset House that was supposed to be have taken a physical form. I think you've probably been planning it for some time with Krishma and with the Somerset House team. Can you tell us a little bit about the project that you've been doing and the making the flag project for Earth Day?
Yeah, so thank you for having me. So we were commissioned to do the flag for Somerset House and to also kind of like take over the courtyard. But that's obviously been postponed until later in the summer, or when we're allowed to socialise again. But the whole project was around kind of bringing people together in the Somerset House space. And the project was called All of Our Children. And so we've been working alongside the Magpie Project, which is a charity based in Newham. And we worked on the last collection for January with that organisation. And then we kind of wanted to continue that conversation but kind of broaden it. The last collection was called No Recourse to Public Funds. So we were working with a specific group in Newham, which has the largest number of homeless families in the UK. And that borough of London has 1 in 11 children are homeless, and the same in Westminster, where Somerset House is based. And a lot of the people that use the women and families that work with Magpie, so they're a project that kind of help and support these families, and it's mothers within Newham that were worried about mothers in temporary accommodation, and they kind of set up a space for these families, for the children to come and play in a safe environment, because the housing is actually not legislated or regulated, that these people live within, and you know, they're vastly moved a lot of times through different boroughs, and it's families that are living on £34 a week that don't have access to any funding, the NHS. So, and I think with COVID right now, it's really shown how vulnerable these people are. You know, and even some people have rights to recourse of public, they don't have rights to recourse of public funds, but have rights to reside in the UK. So then people that are our key workers, you know, within social care, will have to work if they're ill, because they don't have access to universal credit and they don't have access to NHS. So and I think as of this week, the Mayor of London has written a press release about no rights to recourse to have action through the government, and also this kind of law has been taken to the higher court. So I think hopefully out of this horrible situation there might be some light. But yeah, so that's kind of where we were working with, and kind of a lot of the families, when we were speaking to Jane, the founder, a lot of the families have been told when they've gone to gone to the council, like, these children don't belong to us, they're not our country's children. So kind of this was talking about owning all of our children, but also kind of thinking about, you know, our next generation and our previous generation, and like what messages we'd want to leave to our future generation. And kind of with the Magpie project, it's kind of like talking about our children right now that we're not protecting or supporting. And I think, with COVID, I think it's quite interesting because on the 27th of March, you know, the government told all of the councils that anyone homeless needs to be housed because they are a health risk to us, you know, to us as the UK. So I think it's kind of showing us that we're all connected and that we all need to look after each other. I've this week watched a really amazing talk by Kate McIntosh, the architect, who's 83. And I think she was one of the head of Lambeth Council Architects when she was 27. And she was just really amazing, kind of gave a lot of facts and figures behind that. And, you know, how councils in London, their budgets have been cut by 30%. And yet they've been asked to house all of these people from the 27th. And I think, like, now all of these people have been housed. What is the question after COVID? What happens to these people? You know, are we going to tell families that they're now having to be dehoused? I think it's just a really interesting time for politics. But yeah,
it is really highlighting the idea that we must take responsibility for each other. We can't just, you know, think it's somebody else's problem. The same could be said as well, I think, for the garment workers. It's a similar situation that, you know, we're now seeing that, you know, that brands are not taking responsibility for those workers because they're somehow, you know, not their problem. And that there seems to be a parallel there, I think, with the children that you're talking about, you know, that it's really shocking that people you know, wouldn't see it as their responsibility. So the flag idea, tell us about the flag idea.
Yeah, so the flag we were making from like recycled materials, but the idea was to kind of, it's titled All of Our Children, and we would have two flags. So one would be embroidered by the Magpie community, which would come to Somerset House and be the flag there. And then on the day we were going to invite people to come and, you know, partake and embroider messages to the next generation. And then that flag would go back to Magpie's flagpole. So we'd have two flags and like two celebrations. And we were kind of bringing the Magpie community to have lunch and to do activities and children play in the courtyard. So it was just like kind of a celebration of the project. And like it would have been really...
What's really extraordinary about your work is the way that you get involved with a social or a charitable project, and you really somehow weave stories between the project, you know, what they're trying to achieve, their aims and ambitions, but also you weave that into a collection of clothing. And the whole thing is really circular, but then, you know, you give proceeds of the sales and the clothing back to the charities that you're working with. It really is a very complex, but at the same time, you know, remarkably simple, and, you know, why doesn't everybody else do it idea. how did you come across this way of working? Was it something that you consciously planned?
I think it was because I was at the time, like when I kind of, you know, I did fine art. I didn't do fashion for my BA, and I was working for the publication garage. So that was kind of like very much about bringing artists and fashion houses together and working on site-specific projects with galleries, or, you know, with shoots or films. And we'd always have like really unexpected outcomes because it was bringing people that have two different outlooks together. But at the same time, I was doing a lot of volunteer work, and like, you know, going from like planning these kind of shoots and these amazing projects to then at nighttime going and working with people that can't afford like a meal or like accommodation. And I was kind of looking into the reading, like my dissertation at the time was like, does art have the ability to like have an effect outside of itself, or like a political effect outside of itself? So I was like reading a lot around like Jacques Rancière, the philosopher, like talking about that. And then also like looking at the art practices like Superflex, that are like art collectives that kind of infiltrate multinational companies or governments and supply funding to kind of fund artistic projects, but they're kind of social improvement projects, I think, as well. And so it's kind of like I was looking at like systems design and how like other artists or other designers kind of like apply that with my research, and then like, you know, like trying to kind of infiltrate that kind of system within fashion. Yeah, so kind of I think maybe having like, I was like doing critical fine art practice, so fine art but with like critical theory as my kind of degree. So my kind of thinking was really changed through that course more than anything. So I think then, yeah, like creating like different systems and yeah, and like art practices, and then applying that into a fashion sense. Oh, sorry. Tamsin, I can't. Okay.
Sorry, it has to happen to everybody, doesn't it?
Yeah.
How did you bring that into a fashion practice rather than taking it into more of a fine art, you know, gallery space?
Yeah, I think because like I always have had like my background, and like I've always been making, and it's in my family, and you know, I love clothes, and I love textiles, you know, and I love spending time developing, and I love designing. You know, like I am a designer, so it was kind of like, I think like me selfishly trying to like bring all of my kind of interests together into one space, which was like, you know, like my kind of my research and critical thinking, you know, like with the charities that we work with, it's you know, we research around those kind of issues that are based in the UK, and who's trying to problem solve them in the best way. And through the collection, it's giving people a voice that wouldn't necessarily have that voice. And you know, like with our show for January, it's to, you know, to hopefully communicate everything that Jane at Magpie, the founder, you know, like we work with her to make sure that she's comfortable with what we're saying, like is what she wants to talk about, you know, and you know, all the way down from the prints to the films to the models to the, you know, to the whole process really. Yeah, just so we make sure that we're being respectful as well.
It's a very deep relationship, isn't it? It's not, it's by no means you sort of coming along and saying, oh, I'll just take some inspiration. You go and you volunteer, you really get to know the work of the charities that you work with.
Yeah, so yeah, I'll volunteer to kind of get an understanding and to see like what, you know, and the question is to ask what we can do to help and support, you know, and how can we give you a voice through the work. Yeah, and then we also do work with different social projects on all of the manufacturing as well, so that kind of always stays like with every collection. So we work with 3 different social projects for manufacturing, and with all of them, I've been working with them for over 3 years. And so we've kind of like developed, quite a good relationship, I'd hope.
Can you tell us about the Women's Prison Project that you work with?
Yeah, so Making for Change, so that's set up by London College of Fashion and the Ministry of Justice, and now actually partnered with the Mayor's Office. So Frances Corner, who was the Dean at the time of LCF, wanted to really try and help and implement within the prison system. So women in the UK make up 4% of the prison population, but have one of the highest reoffending rates. And so it's a very small percentage, and there wasn't very much set up to kind of like give support in gaining skills on release. So they've set up a manufacturing unit, and it's training level 1 and level 2, and they have LCF technicians based in Downview, and then they have work release programs, and then now they're setting up their secondary site in Poplar, where our studio is moving into as well. And so people from that program can continue work afterwards, but also they're working with the Poplar community with training programs as well. And then we're taking on sample machinists that have finished the program in-house. So we've been doing that since the last collection.
Will that be a real change for you, actually having the people that make your clothes in the same building as you?
Yeah, because of course, like all the production would be for jersey would be with Making for Change. So now I think our jersey will still stay there, but our denim and wovens will move to Poplar, because we've just been working with a small sample factory in North London. And then our fabrics are woven in Italy with a community called San Patrignano. So I was introduced to them through London College of Fashion and also the Xenia Foundation. So I went there to do an art residency 3 years ago. And then I've continued working with them ever since. So they're an amazing organisation. And it's like a community of 1,200 people and 50 different sectors of making. So it's a drug rehabilitation centre, I think one of the most successful in the world. But also it's kind of focused on how craft has the ability to heal, and also, going back to school and having education. But they have like 50 different sectors of making. And we work with the textile department. So we work with donated yarns from Italian mills that are dead stock, and then a recycled material that kind of relates to the project that will make each collection. But I haven't, it's been really exciting. Usually we'll go there to do the sampling. So I'm obviously not allowed to move at the minute. So yeah.
What's amazing though about their work is that it's really exquisite, isn't it? I mean, the craftsmanship is absolutely beautiful. And I'm thinking particularly of the collection that you did when you wove waste paper from a book publisher into the fabrics.
Yeah, I think the level of skill there is insane. So that their clients are like couture, so like Valentino, Chanel, Dior, like Xenia, like they it's I think it was amazing when I first went there, because also there's like a hand painted wallpaper, like screen printing, like leather bag making. There's so like farming, like cheese, like white, like it was so vast. I felt like, there was so much going on. You go there and it's like such a creative hub, and like a way of life as well. So it is amazing.
Can you tell us a little about how you source the materials for your collections? Because you don't really use any virgin fibres at all, do you? Or is there a small percentage?
Yeah, so we use recycled or organic. So we work with a textile supplier in Wales for the organic materials. And then, we source recycled materials. So we work with a number of recycling places, but our main one is in Kent, called Chris Kearney's Collections. So we'll kind of like work with them on, they sort, and we'll ask for specific things and then they'll sort that. But I think for the last collection, because we were kind of looking around like motherhood, like sisterhood, so and childhood, so we did a lot of research with the V&A Museum of Childhood and went through and looked through all the archives, and then also like we were kind of really influenced by the WI in Canning Town. So they do quilts, and they produce a quilt for every baby that's born into the Magpie charity. So we were kind of like looking at quilting and blankets and that, yeah, like all bedding, and so we were kind of sourcing blankets and quilts and making them into new clothes. And like we also sourced tents, and because we work with Chris Kenny's quite a lot, they'll kind of like tell us when they've had a weird request, and then so we had like glamping, like 25 glamping tents that needed donating, just the canvas, not the frame. So yeah, so we went in, well, Natalie, who works for me, went to get all of those from a farm, and now we've got them. Yeah,
I saw those tents in your studio when they just arrived, and they were really filthy. So
yeah.
How do you go about cleaning all of this and and processing those raw materials before you can start making with them?
Yeah, so we've been cleaning them. Yeah, but it's just been really hard.
They're made from a canvas material, aren't they? They're like bell tents made from canvas.
Yeah, they're bell tents. But I think we were just like, oh, we'll just get them all, because before we were working from my house, and then we had a studio, so we were like, oh, amazing, we can start collecting loads of waste, and then it just mounts up, and you're like, oh no, and like such a hoarder. But yeah, no, so yeah, it's getting everything cleaned, and then we work with all hand processes, so like screen printing, which we worked with Auto Print, which is run by a group of girls in Peckham. So they are in like Peckham Levels, which is like a car park. So they do all of our printing with like ecological inks. And then we've just done our first digital print, because the fixing for digital print is actually really bad for the environment when you wash it in your machine. But there's like this new process by Think Positive Prints, where the fixing agent isn't toxic. It's like a neutral agent. So that's the first time we've ever done that. So we did that in this collection. And then we do hand embroidery, and then the handwoven textiles. And then our buttons are all handmade from a workshop in the Isle of Man where I'm from. So it's like a 2-day-a-week program for people wanting to try and get back to work and get confidence. So it's 2 days a week paid in a wood workshop. So they produce all of our buttons, and then yeah, we work with like recycled denim, yeah, like a lot, and then a lot of unpicking. And then
Tell us about the unpicking. I'm fascinated by your unpicking processes with denim. That in itself is a real craft, isn't it?
Yeah, I think getting the time down for the unpicking is like over the years. And then I work with a girl called Natalie, but she's actually like, she's much more efficient than me. So she's much quicker. But yeah, no, it does. I think you have to put all of that time into the garments as well. So yeah, it is like a timely process. And then we do hand knitting as well. So that's long.
What are your plans from here, Bethany? How do you move forward? I mean, obviously, we have this pause at the moment. Although I know you've been extremely busy during this time, but how do you see your business growing? Because I know it's not your mission in life to become a big brand, to be selling lots of clothes. How do you move forward?
So yeah, I think we're doing quite a lot of like site specific projects. So like this one with Somerset House is leading up till September, and then like looking to work with different galleries as well and like institutions, and kind of working like site specifically with them, because the projects that we work on are site specific, like within like the charitable organizations, and the research kind of stems from that area. But then I think because I've kind of joined forces with Holly Fulton and Phoebe English and Cassette McCreary to set up the Emergency Designer Network. So we are kind of like, I've been doing I've had my business has kind of been put on pause for a little bit, just because we've kind of set that up just for an emergency for the time being, to help with the lack of PPE in the.
So you're making at the moment. You're making hospital scrubs.
Yeah, so we're making hospital scrubs, and then we're moving on to try and do different PPE as well. That's more like, because we've kind of like got a system that makes scrubs, and then we're looking into different area which is needed as well. But I think it's like now there's 100 makers that we're working with, and we did the first week of production this week, so we made over 2,100 units in 1 week, and then next week I think it's 3,000. So I think
wow, that's amazing.
Oh, thank you. But I think it's just been amazing to kind of have everyone's response and everyone kind of getting involved. And then, we're trying to set up other routes as well. And then also a lot of people have been getting in contact with us to, like, they have PPE in the UK but haven't been able to get in touch with the Cabinet Office. So then we're kind of like distributing it as well. And connecting people to the right places in the NHS. So it's been a bit of a mental 4 weeks.
Well, I think it does give you hope to know that that you're on that, because if anybody can sort this out, it's you and Phoebe and Holly and the rest of the designers. It's a really incredible initiative you're doing. So thank you from everybody for doing that. I have a couple of questions just before we end from our audience. There's a question here. Given that 2020 is such an important year for climate action, and thinking through the impact of COVID-19 too, what are the key changes you'd like to see in fashion moving forward?
I think we've seen in the last couple of weeks this kind of generosity and kindness from the fashion community, which for me has been really amazing to see. And I think working on the Emergency Designer Network, I feel really proud to be working with the response that we've had of people offering to help in so many ways. So I'm just really hoping that this kind of way of thinking and this kind of kindness and generosity is continued within people's business models moving forward. And I do think we've been asking for this kind of moment of pause for a while, and now that we've had it, I really hope that we don't go back to business as usual. And then also for the UK, I think it's been really interesting to see, I think especially through the PPE project we've been doing, just how we do need to have local manufacturing, and we do need to support local manufacturing, and that we can't continually rely from overseas. I think that's, for me, a really important thing, is to actually support local as well.
There's a lot we can learn from this going forward. There's another question here. What does a future creative career in fashion and textiles look like after COVID-19? For you, I guess there's a lot of this that you can take, or that we can take. You're already taking it, but the idea of localized production hubs is a really important idea going forward.
No, definitely. And I think I didn't even, because obviously we do everything local apart from San Patrignano, but I think the last month I've found so many amazing makers and manufacturers over the last 4 weeks, and that have been so supportive. And yeah, I do really think that it needs to be taken serious as well. And I think for government to take it serious, that like local manufacturing is needed and needs to be supported.
Yeah. And finally, before we're going to show a short clip actually of your film that you did with Magpie at the end of this, and actually we'll be showing the whole full length of the film on Somerset House website and on Fashion Revolution YouTube as well. But just another question, what advice would you give to young people who might be just graduating or job hunting in the creative sector? It's obviously very challenging times right now.
Yeah, it's so challenging. I think it's so difficult, even for me who has I have a business, and it's a very difficult time for everyone. But I think I think it's just, finding something that you love and being passionate about it and trying to move forward with that. Like, for me, it took me a really long time to even be doing this full time. I worked in night shifts so long for 3 years after I graduated, because this is what I really wanted to do. So it's not easy, but I think you have to be positive and, really believe in what you're doing and really love what you do. Because I think, especially within fashion, I think even with doing the emergency designer thing, everyone in fashion works really hard. I think especially designers and makers, it's not 9 to 5. And I think I've really seen how quickly we could get things going with that emergency designer network, because everybody's so hardworking. So I think there needs to be more credit given to people working within fashion as well.
Yeah, and I think actually having a mission as you do, and really designing not just with function in mind, but with a real purpose in mind. I think that is something that young designers will really be able to take away from your business for sure, as something that really keeps you going, I think, as a creative. That's amazing. Thank you so much, Bethany. Thank you for joining us today. And really thank you for all the work that you're doing with the Emergency Designer Network. And people can follow you on Instagram, I think, and support the network, because I know you're looking for donations.
Yeah, so it's Emergency Designer Network, so on Instagram, and a website, urgencydesignernetwork.org. But if you're a maker and wanting to get involved, you can email through to that, and we can add you to the list of makers. And then, donations, we've worked out the cost of a pair of scrubs is £6 for the material. So the whole thing is a voluntary, we're all working on it voluntary, but the cost of the material, because it's NHS certified, we have to pay for. So yeah.
Okay, great. We'll all be having a look at that straight away after this. Thank you so much, Bethany. I'm going to go over to Orsola now, who is going to do a few final words to wrap up what's been a really, really fascinating afternoon with some incredible design talent and wonderful creativity and ideas. Thank you all. And Orsola, are you there?
I am. Here I am.
Hi.
It's amazing. I'm so sorry I had to quickly hop off for an Instagram live, but I will join hopefully droves of people that will also watch it on YouTube, because that's where it will live. Again, I really want to thank you, Somerset House, for giving us this opportunity, and all of you who took part, Katie, Paolo, the team at Congregation, Bethany. Fashion Open Studio actually continues tomorrow globally, but this is the last of our UK event, and so it's really my last opportunity to thank the team. So I'll take a second to thank you all, mostly Tamsin for curating this year's program, as last year's and the year before, but this year's been really incredible. The team who actually made Fashion Open Studio possible, and that's Filippo and Stevie T and Matt and Emily and Bronwyn and Maria for the design and the branding and the communication element, which is also so important, and Neve for orchestrating all of the international Fashion Open studios and really engaging with all of the country coordinators and also all of you country coordinators who have taken part. I am humbled by this initiative and moved by what we've all seen. I hope that people will keep looking at the videos on YouTube and continue to be inspired, grow and learn. This is what we can all do right now, grow and learn. And I'm very proud that Fashion Revolution and Fashion Open Studio can be vehicle for you to continue on this process. So thank you very, very, very much.
Thanks so much, Orsola. And I just realized that we forgot to show Bethany's film. So over to you, Somerset House. If we could, it would be a really lovely way to end.
She said, "My name is heavy." She's watched it fidget in mouths that could not carry it, could not balance it on their tongues long enough, so they spat it out. Called her by her case number instead and left the name she came with on the doorstep. She wanted to tell them to handle it with care, that her name carried the legacy of her mother and will one day belong to her daughter too. She said she wished that her daughter knew just how cold it was outside of the womb, so that maybe she'd stay there a little longer. She promised to stretch her body, make enough room inside her belly for a child to grow and play and learn to walk, because she has found that this ground cracks under the slightest pressure. She has seen the earth open up and swallow innocent children whole, so how could she trust it to hold her own? She said she remembers the taste of home. She lets it sit on her lips at night, takes a bite out of her memories when nobody is looking, and for a second she feels full, whole, until guilt gnaws holes into her stomach. Her conscience will not let her enjoy a memory she cannot pass down to her children. She said she watches them sleep and prays that their dreams take them to places she cannot. Not because it is too far. Her feet are used to walking, her eyes are used to the pitch black at the back of lorries. Her skin is used to being bitten by bitter winds. She is not scared of distance. She is scared that when she arrives, she will fall further than when she departed. She said she has nothing to say. Truth is, she has learnt that her words are always recorded but never heard. She wonders if they will use all the forms she's filled to fly 1,000 paper planes, so her children could become permanent passengers in the sky. Imagine they built a house made of paper. She's been placed in boxes with thinner walls before, walls that could not keep secrets, that let her whispers escape with the warmth. She said she has met many men in suits who have more questions for her than she has answers, but nobody has asked if she has eaten today or if she was okay. She said she is tired. These days she rarely uses pillows for sleep, but instead to catch her tears before they drop like missiles. She does not want an innocent child to get hit. They were never supposed to inherit her fears and her trauma, only her name. Her name is heavy. She says, I say, you are welcome. Every syllable of your name, all the shame and blame you have dragged for miles because nobody told you that this guilt does not belong to you. Every tear you have ever held back, the backpack breaking your back, carrier bags full of old broken promises and new hope, it is all welcome here. I say, I believe you. Your story, your journey with all its twists and turns, the life twisting and turning inside your belly. No one has congratulated you yet. I say congratulations. You are much more than a number. You are woman, you are mother, you are water, carrying life from one side of the riverbank to another. I say you are not alone. I know you feel lost, but I will walk with you. I will help carry the weight with you, and I will wait with you until you find your way home.